Sound of deception. This presentation will mostly concern child sex trafficking. Before I launch into that presentation, I neglected to share a little treasure in my previous presentation, the one about Aldous Huxley. If I may, I will share that now. Um, It exists in his last book, Island. It seems he saved the most savory, no, wrong metaphor, most controversial topic for his last book and for the end of that book too. I will just read this piece. Susilla then invites Farnaby to try the moksha medicine drug. At last, his ensuing hallucinatory visions are vividly philosophical BS and unspeakably vibrant. Possibly. He feels a loss of self in the oneness of everything and knowledgeless understanding. Knowledgeless understanding. They do love to tease us with their oxymorons. Oxymorons for morons. And he also horrifically watches a nearby mantis sexually cannibalize her partner. How curious. The cannibalism theme rears its head again. And shortly afterwards, Susilla encourages him to let the medicine help him see the beauty in all things. Cannibalism implied. How lovely. Thank you, Aldous Huxley. Ah, well, let's get on with the topic at hand. Um, I'll be doing quite a bit of sharing, going back and forth from tabs to slides, so bear with me. Um, there we go. Yeah, how's that? A little fun with the title of the famous movie, documovie that brought so much attention to the child trafficking topic. The sound of freedom, they called it. Was it just 3 years ago? It's a nice title. Reminds me of The Sound of Music, that famous, rather silly movie about a stepmother rearing some 7 children. Children again. And in this case, it's the loving stepmother. Um, Now, well, child trafficking. I want to be clear from the beginning that, of course, I will raise questions the about the what's the right word? About the actuality of this issue, whether we're not being duped again. But I want to be clear that for sure, certainly, um, sex trafficking does happen, but not through abductions, large scale abductions. Um, we do have a pandemic of, I would say, economically poverty inspired um, prostitution in all countries now. Uh, Young women trying to pay their university tuitions by prostituting themselves. Um, Women from Eastern Europe and elsewhere Choosing prostitution. That's not sex trafficking. That's simply prostitution. So I'll make that distinction from the beginning. And I will raise questions based on general observations and some specific video footage. So let's begin this with Sound of Freedom, which made a splash in 2023 because, well, the whole topic of child trafficking made big headlines because Hollywood produced Sound of Freedom. And of course, there were other promotions online. Um, I know researchers or critics such as Amanda Vollmer exposed the profit motive behind Sound of Freedom. But like so many others, she reinforced the belief in child trafficking without providing evidence for it. This echoes the work of those people who questioned COVID-19 mandates, but did not question the existence of the pandemic, much less the existence of viruses. Sound of Freedom claimed to document the child rescue operation known as Operation Underground Railroad, which began or was begun and was led by former CIA agent and Homeland Security genius Tim Ballard, pronounced Ball-ard, who was played by actor Jim Caviezel. Caviezel the Weasel, initials JC. He also starred in The Passion of Christ. Who are these two men? Tim and Jim. Are they real? Are they lifetime actors born to the secret nobility? Their names are slightly curious. Operation Underground Railroad was named after the post-abolition exodus of blacks. Not millions, we're talking maybe 10 or 20,000, they say, from the agricultural South to the industrial North. That exodus used a network of roads and houses known as the Underground Railroad. It's a strange name for an exodus that reputedly happened on foot in a world without underground railroads. But London has a secret and abandoned underground railroad, and I think other cities also. These railroads, not subways, railroads, likely predate the 1800s and were probably used to move slaves and resources. Why underground? Well, the aristocrat masters of the world, of the past world, didn't want dirty trains running above ground, even though their cities had spacious avenues. Uh, let's move on to the next slide. Here's a map of the alleged Underground Railroad tracks, for lack of a better word. Um, they do converge on cities, and that shouldn't surprise us. Um, I suspect there was a large movement of people, blacks perhaps, going north in the mid 1800s. Not so much because of abolition, but because of industrialization. The cotton harvesting, cotton growing industry was being mechanized, making the slaves, the workers redundant. And in the north of the US, Factories were appearing, so that's where the work was. People were just chasing money, not chasing freedom. Oh no, very different. Actually, this entire map is highly questionable because the cotton was grown in the deep south, and judging and sorry, none of the red lines marking the underground railroads originate in the deep south. This is corn belt, not cotton belt world. So it is they screwed that up badly. Um, Harriet Tubman made 13 trips to the south, they say. Sure, over 300 miles up and down on foot. Really? What? Um, I guess you couldn't do it in a carriage. That would be suspicious. I've got a carriage with, 10 slaves. Please let me pass. Um, so she gained the nickname the Moses of her people. Moses of her people. Well, that's nice. Yeah, and Moses is fiction. So say no more. Um, and those, let's assume many blacks went north for so-called freedom. Well, that is exposed as a lie because even Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle in I think it was set in Chicago, um, documenting through fiction the awful, awful working class conditions of the Europe that the European immigrants experienced um, in the stockyards and the slaughterhouses. We're back to meat again. Sorry about that. Um, let's move on to an interview, which Tim and Jim, yes, to remind you, Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel, these two did a interview with one of Canada's best liars, Jordan Peterson. So we'll have a look at that in one moment. I have quite a few points in that interview that I wish to examine. Let's see if I'm not go I hope to go to the right place. There we go. Yes, Jordan Peterson. Leave it to him. Um, I will begin with an interesting number at the, th the 4-minute mark. Let's have a listen. I wish I had an assistant on a separate computer taking care of all this, but this will do. The best we have and say that there's close to 6 million children or more who are forced into sex slavery, labor slavery, or organ harvesting. And I can attest that we have that say that there's close to 6 million children or more who are forced in. 6 million, isn't that a familiar number? It's always 6 million. During World War I, it was 6 million Jews. During World War II, it was 6 million Jews. And that number has appeared in other contexts. At 5:43, we have something else worthy of our attention. Aye, that's unnecessary. Okay. Something about a West African baby factory. Horrific thing. We film our operations.
I mean, I'm going to post today another operation in West Africa of a baby factory. I mean, these are real cases where they've kidnapped women, as young as 13-year-old children, and they impregnate them, they rape them, and they make babies, and they take these babies and sell them for their organs, sell them for sex, sell them for satanic ritual abuse. Like it does sound crazy. That's why I film it. Our operations, we film our operations so that we can show the world this is very real.
Yes, as if that can't be faked, of course. And why West Africa, really? Um, I think most of the movie is actually set in Central and South America, Central or South. I think Central.
It's really happening. Um, and I think if there's 2 million children forced into commercial sex, which is the most kind of credible statistic that we can find.
Okay, 2 million, 6 million. Nice round numbers. They can't do better than that. Um, Something on adrenochrome, of course, has to pop up just a little while after the baby factories are mentioned. Moments, well, a couple minutes.
Chris, do you have any more specific details about that? I mean, I'm not sure what exactly they're talking about. Probably they might be referring to the fact that there's something called adrenochrome where they take they're taking children's blood and devouring it and so forth. And I've explained my experience with that.
Again, he's talking about West Africa, I think. Want some part of Africa.
I just did in West Africa
Yeah.
and other places. We've seen this in several parts of the continent of Africa, and it's very real. It's very real. This witch doctory. They take these children. We they take their organs. They take their blood. They drink it. They take the genitalia of children and hang it over the rooftop of their businesses, thinking that the dark gods will bless them. These are real things.
Real things. Yeah, yeah. I see all the photos and pictures. Even that we don't get. This is a tiresome narrative about the uncivilized peoples of the world being cannibals. You know, everyone from Indonesia to the Amazon and Mexico, the Aztecs, and so on. Sure, they were the cannibals, not European aristocrats, not the people who wrote the history of the world, all the literature of the world. No, couldn't be them. Um, Adrenochrome. By the way, that this is silly to say they were drinking the blood. That's no way to get the effect of adrenochrome. Digestive system would destroy it. He knows that, I'm sure. It's a cult that injects blood of children mostly for its revitalizing, healing properties. Yeah, and all those obelisks around the world, they are symbolic hypodermic needles. Yes, I think I mentioned that in another presentation. Next, we get to see some of Jim Caviezel speak about children. One moment.
Did a number of actors turn down the opportunity to play the role? What and why did you decide to forego that risk and to climb aboard?
I foregoed the risk because when you have three children that you loved and you'd give your life for, it kind of connects into Tim Ballard, and Tim did this for this little girl and the children that he saves. It's something is a great.
His stumbling delivery and stone-faced expression. He's this way throughout the entire interview. It's I don't think this is normal behavior from an actor. Uh, Perhaps he's just too conscious of the fact that he's lying and maybe reciting practiced lines.
Your purpose, that even your career, like I went through this with Mel Gibson when we did The Passion, that my career was the last thing I thought of. What I thought about was the God I love. And I put this, and how I look at it is that this God that I love, he loves me and he deserved to be loved back. And so I would be nothing without him. He gave me my purpose in this life. So um, the Tim Ballard.
Well, that's enough from Mr. Stoneface. Um, 21:15. This one made me laugh. Yes, it's Stoneface again.
Sting operations to take down these very, very bad men.
Sting operations to take down these very, very bad men. Does he have a limited vocabulary and limited emotional range? It's a bit strange for an actor. Ah, very, very bad men. He's talking about child sex traffickers. I think you might find more appropriate words, but no, he couldn't. Um, let's give the stage back to Tim. Tim Ballard. One moment. A little head.
And then it's real. That is so shocking to the system. It changes your life forever. I tell people, I feel like I've had a million holes burned into my brain because I've watched thousands of hours of that kind of material. Not because I've watched thousands of hours of that kind of material into my brain because I've watched thousands of hours.
Really? Was that necessary? I mean, was that necessary to watch thousands of hours of pedophiles? Pedophilia? Hmm. I know he worked in the field, but no, this seems absurd. I don't think you need to watch thousands of hours. Um, Maybe a few clips to get a good sense, a good idea of the faces, the people that to identify pedophiles, child traffickers. But thousands of hours? Really? I don't believe it. Anyway, it's some kind of joke, I suppose. Don't pretend to know exactly or to understand their sense of humor. Next, I'm going to give the stage to Jordan Peterson. One moment. 30. There we go.
History instead of in the Garden of Eden. And one is the pathway of Cain, and the other is the pathway of Abel. Now, Abel makes high quality sacrifices. He's all in, right? He puts himself on the line and he does the real thing. And as a consequence,
He puts himself on the line. He does the real thing. This man ad-libs, extemporizes so much. He is in reinventing the Bible. Um, let's have a quick look at the Cain and Abel passages he refers to. Abel kept flocks, Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Well, yes, and rightfully so. For what reason did God reject his offering? Well, I guess God just likes meat better than vegetables, or especially grains. I might reject that too. Um, he's working the soil. Um, I think it's clear in this and other places that he's offering grain. But, well, it would have been nice for God to have told him ahead of time that he doesn't approve of grain offerings and wants meat. Um, Specifically, I think it was, well, it's not clear here. I thought it was a lamb. Flock, yes, flock. So it must be a lamb or a sheep. That's the foremost metaphor for Jesus, human sacrifice. There we have that again. But listen to what Mr. Peterson does with this simple passage, with God's inexplicable, well, let's say unjustified rejection. He's reinventing the Bible.
God finds favor with God, and his sacrifices are rewarded. He does well, and everyone loves him, and he thrives. And Cain, his sacrifices are not of the same quality. He tries to cut corners.
Tries to cut corners. Well, oh there's no evidence in the Bible of Cain cutting corners. God just didn't like his gift.
To pull the wool over his eyes and God's eyes and everyone else's eyes.
Whoa, really now? Cain is deliberately misleading God as if he's Prometheus in that story by Hesiod. Prometheus deceiving Zeus.
As a consequence, his sacrifices are rejected. And instead of cluing the hell in and waking up and taking responsibility for his failure.
Yeah, this is the Jordan Peterson line of thinking. We must all take responsibility.
He decides that he's going to call out God for creating a cosmos that's cosmically unfair and unjust.
Well, that doesn't happen either, but yeah, he has quite a series of lectures on the Bible. What a moron. Cain and Abel, okay. Yeah, God wanted meat, the lamb. He wanted adrenochrome too. One more quote from Mr. Peterson at the 45-minute mark. He does have some interesting statements.
I spent a bit of time, not a lot, but a bit of time inside a maximum security prison when I was a kid.
Isn't that curious? I spent some time in a maximum security prison as a child.
Psychologist that was down.
And he was working with this very strange psychologist. How old were you? You were a kid, you said. But who writes these scripts? What kind of jokers?
One of the things that really shocked me, and I think this shocked me enough to change my whole life, was I met this one prisoner who was a pretty nondescript looking character. He took me for a walk out in the yard away from a gym full of like weightlifting, axe murderer, monsters, and rapists. And we went for a walk out in the yard, and the
Yes, he took you for a walk among axe murderers and rapists. You, as a kid. Oh, oh no. One more spot here to go to 1:12:30.
like a child in order to do that and recognize you can't on your own do it. But she
He's talking about his decision to begin Operation Underground Railroad, and he needed God and his wife to persuade him.
I don't know where she got it. Maybe it was a download from heaven, but she said, "Do you see the two paths you're going on? Either you go into Colombia and you do this operation, and what does that look like?" And I said, "It was horrifying. It's scary. It's dark. There's cobwebs. I mean, I was literally imagining this. There's spiders. There's evil things."
Do they think we're in kindergarten? Are they in kindergarten? He's associating crimes against humanity with cobwebs and spiders. And
there's cobwebs. I mean, I was literally imagining this. There's spiders. There's evil things. And she said, "What
evil things? What does this man live in Harry Potter world? Oh, it's too ridiculous. And we're meant to take it seriously, are we? Well, most people did, because they don't suspect that we're being played by very bad jokers. Um, all right, I have one more video to explore with you. This one is a presentation. I guess I could call it a presentation by Anneka Lucas, a former sex slave, who candidly reveals the horrors of her experience as a child sex slave. Um, she claims she was sold into the sex trade by her parents at 6 years old. Is that possible? What does it say down here? Annette Lucas claims she was raped, tortured with a fishhook, and almost stabbed after being sold into an aristocratic pedophile ring at the age of 6. She never went to the police with her claims because she said she was scared into silence after watching kids being killed by sadistic members as a warning to others. Wow. Quite a survivor from the age of 6, I think, until the age of 10 or beyond. I don't think it was clear. I did watch this and 2 other interviews with her. Um, well, there's a question. Can mothers and fathers volunteer their own children to sex traffickers? Can human beings actually treat children, their own children, oh, no, other people's children, as labor and sex slaves? Even as blood and organ resources? Is such inhumanity possible? For mentally healthy people, no. Nature abhors such treatments of children. But can it happen? Are there such mentally unhealthy parents and people that can make child sex slavery possible? Well, I guess to be honest, our entire culture is predicated on treating others as hosts resources, things to be exploited. Every employee volunteers to be exploited for the employer's profit. Women exploit their bodies for attention and exploit men for their pleasure. Men do the same. Beauty and bodybuilding participants volunteer their bodies to the objectifying gaze of the public and judges. Bankers and governments treat us as numbers for profit. Advertisers and public relations professionals also exploit us for profit and advantage. So we're constantly being treated or exploited for other people's profit. Yeah, the sex is just another dimension, aspect. In light of this, should we be surprised that people would volunteer their children to sex traffickers? Maybe not. Although I have a suspicion that the sex trafficking world does not really exist, as I'm already exposing by raising questions about the honesty of the creators of Sound of Freedom. I think maybe the entire child sex and maybe human trafficking issues are enormous distractions from the real problems in this world. I've already spoken about the prostitution problem. It is largely motivated by economic need, which is completely unnecessary or should be unnecessary. We are an intelligent species, or could be. Well, what are the real problems? Maybe there's another kind of trafficking we should be addressing. Volunteering one's children to schools where they are treated as numbers, receive almost no attention, and are forced to do boring, repetitive, and mostly useless mental work. Isn't that a form of child trafficking? The schools profit, the teachers and the administrators profit from what I consider mostly child abuse. I say that as a teacher, mostly working on the margins of the education world. To force a child to endure 12 years in prison-like circumstances during which teachers drill them with lessons that thoroughly alienate them from Mother Nature and ensure they understand nothing about their connection to nature and their role in nature, that's also a form of mental rape. But these topics don't interest Hollywood. They work to help us forget the real, R-E-A-L, and to focus on the R-E-E-L, the footage, the video world, the imaginary virtual world. Stories about child trafficking set mostly in foreign countries are only cathartic for unthinking people. People who don't question what they see and don't think about what they are doing to their own children. The amount of mental rape happening today via televisions, iPads, and Mimi phones is beyond tragic. It is genocidal. It is a pandemic of lobotomies. I've just I saw a documentary, or let's call it a podcast, by a teacher explaining that teachers were quitting their profession on account of children now being impossible to manage, let alone teach. We don't have movies about that. The CIA and Homeland Security will not form special units to deal with that genuine problem. I'm going to switch back to my slides. if I can find them. It's such a challenge for me. Is it, where are you? That's where it is. Got it. So, oh, I forgot to share this one. Yeah, the word railroad. Railroaded. That means to be forced, pressured, or rushed into doing something you do not want to do, often through unfair, hurried, or manipulative methods. Well, Operation Railroad was supposed to liberate children from their nightmares. Why is it now it's associated with, now it's suggested that they are forced, pressured, or rushed into being rescued? Operation Railroaded. Well, maybe it's a bad joke of mine. Um, wow, here's the image of many children who have gone missing. And these images have been published and shared for many decades now. Um, I suspect the technology to the kind of Photoshop technology to invent faces that has existed long before that technology was shared with us, the public. So I suspect nearly all these children's photos of children are fake. Yeah. I don't know anyone who has lost a child, or don't know anyone who knows anyone who has lost a child. And yet millions are going missing, they tell us. Millions are going missing. As I've said before, if the cannibal ruling class truly needs children for adrenochrome and other pleasures, perhaps, sick pleasures, I'm sure they wouldn't uh, take the trouble and risk of abducting millions. Not when I've already uh, argued, demonstrated that they have a history of farming humans. That eliminates all the risk. Just farm humans. Uh, as Tim Ballard said, in Western Africa, there are baby factories. Yeah, well, maybe not there. And I wouldn't call them factories, baby farms. One moment. Yeah, by the way, milk companies used to receive, maybe still receive, government subsidies for putting photos of missing children on milk cartons. Um, yeah, just as doctors were rewarded for diagnosing people with COVID-19, regardless of what they actually had. That profit motive did change the statistics. Um, Trump jumped on the child trafficking bandwagon. He claimed he was saving children. Um, although what he allegedly did and does with immigrant children is kind of contradictory, isn't it? Separating those children from their families. I don't believe any of that is really happening. It's all clickbait and drama meant to distract us from the real problems in this world. Problems we hesitate to even acknowledge, like the education problem. We have to credit Trump with uh, launching a campaign or a plan to combat human trafficking. Hurrah! Another waste of money. Might as well, yeah, just what's new? NASA, imaginary trips to the moon, imaginary rescue operations. Great. Where's that money really going? You might not want to know. Big money in this very, what's the word? Drama-filled, heart-wrenching topic of child trafficking. Plenty of movies produced on the subject. I don't think Ben-Hur is one of them. Um, Great freedom, land of, oh, just the word freedom and the freedom topic itself it sells. It sells. Human trafficking, that topic on YouTube produces 49,000 videos on 19,000 channels. It's really captured our minds, hasn't it? How ironic that while we're poisoning our children, our own children, and um, sending them to death camps, mental death camps, so-called schools, we're concerned about imaginary children being trafficked for sex. It's painfully stupid. Slides 8 and 6, I think I've just shared. Yes. Child trafficking, some statistics. Statistics. Child trafficking belongs to the true crime, real crime entertainment market. It is approximately 35% of the entire entertainment market. The so-called true crime genre is a dominant and rapidly growing genre on Netflix, with recent 2025, 2026 data indicating it is a primary driver of viewership and a major component of the platform's, Netflix's platform, documentary boom. True crime content frequently dominates the top 10 charts, with studies indicating that in 2024, 15 of the top 20 documentary titles were true crime. Of course, you understand this is a misnomer. A misnomer. What's another word for that? It's a lie, not true crime. It's ironic. So, 15 of the top 20 documentaries in 2024 were true crime, fake crime, docs, and only 6 in 2020. So this has grown wildly. As of late 2025, over 60% of Netflix subscribers in high consumption countries like Canada and Australia watch true crime. Netflix is the leading platform for true crime with 62%. Well, maybe that's too much info. True crime genre comprises 35% of the entire Netflix catalog. Yes, I think I had a slide on that too. Yeah, The Sound of Ka-ching by William Faulkner. 28 gripping true crime documentaries to stream. That's on the Netflix website. And this is just a sample of what they offer. Into the Fire, The Lost Daughter. No, so it looks like, what's that young girl's name on The Wizard of Oz? Dorothy in the Fields of Arkansas. Interesting book. Telling lies for fun and profit. Doesn't that sum up most of civilization? Ooh, writing fiction for profit. Yeah, I'm tired of fiction. I've had to reinvent comedy. One day I'll share my experimental comedy when it's ready. All right. Back to my notes. Um, of course, children are abused in homes, but more mentally and emotionally and sexually. This is not child trafficking. But this is the reality. Children in foster homes fare even worse. Many end up with addictions and more likely to end up in prison or dead than children raised in their biological families. Yeah, here's the little journal abstract about this topic. Substance use among current and former foster youth, a systematic review. And despite the disproportionately high levels of these variables among youth placed in the foster care system, relatively few studies have focused on the measurement of substance. I forgot the most important sentence. Substance use tends to escalate across adolescence and into young adulthood and can be intensified by experiences with trauma and maltreatment. This is not news, but I guess being forced to leave your biological family can be traumatic. Foster youth. Sound of BS. That ends my slide presentation. But I do have something else to share. More about reality too, often girls can disappear if they are raped at a young age and are pregnant while are unmarried. Families can send them away to nunneries or Catholic places. So they also, they are not trafficked, but this is a real disappearing act done voluntarily by parents. Um, we might also call what the pharmaceutical industry is doing a kind of rape of children. How many children are poisoned, chemically raped with toxic medicines? How many are diagnosed with ADHD and then chemically lobotomized? Maybe that's too strong, but they certainly don't benefit from those psychoactive chemicals. No, they're forced to adapt to schools rather than schools adapt to them. I've never forced children to adapt to my lessons. If they are not interested, I try to find ways to capture their attention, keep their attention. I take responsibility. Um, by the way, the word school means a place where children are educated, but this word was derived from the word school, meaning large group of fish. This is not accidental. Children are treated as schools of fish, and the education system is the big net. And now the internet is an additional net, capturing children's minds, making them stupid enough to continue living as, well, in adulthood, as voluntary slaves. It's another kind of trafficking, yes, as I said, the schools. I have a video on schools somewhere in my channel. Um, well, I'm going to skip some of this depressing statistics about children and, our trafficking our elders into retirement homes and extended care facilities. It's another kind of trafficking. Hollywood will not talk about the horrors of some of those institutions for our elders. I've heard about. All right, let's go to our last tab. Back to Anneke Lucas of Belgium, apparently. And well, after 45 years, I suppose, about 40 to 45 years after her child sex trafficking experience, she is speaking about healing and has incredibly shared her traumatic experience multiple times in multiple interviews. She claims she was raped, tortured with a fish hook, yes. Um, this YouTube channel, Real Women, Real Stories, provided this black and white interview during which Anneke provides a retelling that is extremely stagey, as you will see in a moment. She delivers her story in an empty room. Lighting is perfect. She looks perfect. Multiple camera angles are perfectly timed. Black and white color creates the illusion of authenticity. Her delivery is flawless, as if practiced. Her pace, her speaking pace, is always slightly but noticeably slow and controlled. Her tone begins with a very measured, slightly pained tone. And later, when talking about women in general, she sounds as if she were a yoga priestess and mother coddling little children. So loving and caring and so on. Let's have a quick listen to her at nearly the 2-minute mark. There we go.
My body is full of scars.
Her body is full of scars, and she did roll up a sleeve for us.
Bodies.
I know this is quite a good image, but for the life of me, I don't see any scars there.
Full of scars.
Makes you wonder, are we blind? Did we miss something? Did she roll up the long sleeve? Let's listen a little longer.
I thought that I was going to be killed like all the children that weren't loved enough to live. And I was going to be forgotten as well. And I wasn't ready to die. Someone from inside that network loved me enough to rescue me.
What are the odds? I mean, these networks are full of murderers. Who would dare risk their life? Sounds too Hollywoodish.
That torture lasted a few hours. However, I was in that network for 5 years and a half. In that time, I was raped many, many, many times. I don't have any scars to show.
Wait a second. Did she just contradict herself? I believe she did.
Times I was raped.
Oh, she doesn't have a number of scars that matches the number of times she was raped, but she does have scars, supposedly. Okay. Mental scars, I guess. Well, let's move on. She has some wisdom to share about anger. Apparently, she's now a psychologist at the 1855 mark.
And then to feel the anger about what is being done. Anger restores the responsibility, places the responsibility where it belongs.
Anger restores the responsibility, places it where it belongs. Yeah, no doubt. If you are emotionally challenged, it's good to get your anger out. As they say, not that this will mean you won't be an angry person in the future. But really, anger, well, I have to hear that again.
The responsibility, places the responsibility where it belongs.
Anger places the responsibility where it belongs, as if victims of child abuse couldn't place responsibility where it belongs prior to being angry. As if anger is some sort of tool for making sense of who is guilty, the perpetrators. This is kind of ridiculous. Plus, it's also very primitive. It's not helpful to blame anyone at any time. Um, Simple cause and effect reasoning. We can go beyond that, can't we? We live in a very complicated world, and it doesn't help to simplify it.
So it's a very important part of the process of healing. That includes fantasies of revenge and just wanting to do the same and worse to the perpetrator. So that is also part of the process. And, especially if we get
Part of the healing process. Yes, it's good to put your imagination to work, uh, mimicking the criminals who traumatized you. That's a good use of your imagination. Not, no.
experience these feelings in the process of healing from trauma, then we don't have to go and put unconscious revenge out on people that, are around us, or maybe people in the world as we are.
Okay, yes, by venting anger at the guilty people, you will somehow prevent yourself from venting unconsciously your anger upon innocent people. I wonder, does that really make sense? If you're in the habit of venting anger, being angry, that could become a habit, I would think. I do think.
Power addicted. And then there's a stage of just acceptance and feeling the pain, the same as the child felt, the powerlessness and the reality of this moment. That is
So these are the steps. Um, Being angry, imagining revenge, and then feeling you're reliving the pain. None of this sounds very healthy, and this is not a path to mental health. No one seems to know what we should do with our minds. Certainly, these fake these charlatans and fake psychologists, they don't have a clue.
and then the grief comes. So the grief
Grief.
is also a very necessary part of the process. And I've been in this kind of part of the process anywhere for these last 30 years. So carried a lot of grief, carried a lot of pain. It's very heavy. It's very difficult often to just even make it through the day when we're going into the pain from the past, especially with sexual abuse. It's really very difficult to live in the world and then also heal from sexual abuse. And then the last part is there's something that happens that is a part of ourselves, an emotion
Give her a little more time.
part of ourselves that was ejected out in the moment of trauma because we weren't able to process in the moment is integrated into our consciousness. And when this integration happens through these various steps,
You know, I'm completely lost. Where is she going? We have to go through all these primitive healing steps. Somehow, I think it's all nonsense. Um, the only healing that happens is when we start using our minds productively, actively, exercise our imagination, um, and learn to imagine anything, overcome fear of imagining anything, including the past, even worse things for the future. Um, become masters of our minds in all ways. There, this is not something that interests these people. Let's get one more earful of this BS psychology and feel good psychology, and that's what it becomes here. At the 33rd minute mark, everyone's favorite number. One moment, scrolling, come, there we go. There, no, there, yes.
girls and young women that may perhaps be caught in this life, I just want you to know that you are tremendously brave. You don't have to be better than you are. You are tremendously strong and brave. And there are resources today.
Wow. So all the victims of sexual abuse
You don't have to be.
are brave and strong. This is just coddling your listeners. Well, if any sex crime victims are listening to that, you're coddling them, treating them like babies, and saying things that have no basis in reality. What makes the victims of crimes brave? I don't want to insult them, but we don't have to invent lies to make them feel better, do we?
That may perhaps be caught in this life.
One moment.
I just want you to know that you are tremendously brave. You don't have to be better than you are.
How does she know that victims are already good people? I don't want to say victims are bad people, but there's all sorts of victims. And most people I know have room for improvement, myself included, I guess. A little more at the 38-minute mark, as she really piles it on there. Thick and saucy. 38. There we go.
But as women, as compassionate mothers, as beings who are more in touch with our feelings, and from that place, I think we can make a real difference.
Oh, I missed the sauce. One moment. 3806. Where are you? Maybe it's the 3706. Where she says, well, I'll just paraphrase her. She's speaking to the imaginary victims listening to her presentation. She says, "You are brave, lovely, innocent, beautiful, innocent, and good." Wow, that's really working hard to make them feel better. Um, this is coddling as therapy. It is infantilizing. It is not the way to mental fitness. Therapists and parents might need to say such things to victims who feel ugly, guilty, or worthless. But for mental fitness, we must not merely believe, we must think. Yes, think. And what does that mean? It means many things, including one, mastery of words and ideas, which means words and ideas such as ugly, guilty, bitch, whore, and worse no longer elicit negative emotions. And memories and images, however horrific, no longer elicit negative emotions. And two, it means knowing the complex causes and effects in which we live. The complex causes and effects that create rapists and psychopaths. Emotionally traumatized victims must know or study this, not to excuse criminals, but to help themselves overcome anger and perhaps even to help them know how to create a world without real, REAL, real child trafficking and other real crimes. I hope this review of the child trafficking topic helps everyone avoid being reeled in by the evil fishermen of Hollywood. Many thanks to Fanfire for his research and sincerest feelings of friendship for everyone who appreciates my work. For anyone who wishes to support my work by purchasing one or more, or even just half a book, well, I'll attempt to share something.